our economy. This is 99.1 Pointe FM.
This is Pointe FM's nightly news for Monday, the 12th day of March 2018. Murder accused Delano Forbes pleads not guilty for escaping lawful custody. A British national is found dead aboard his yacht off Antigua. A Vincentian-born jurist is named the third president of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And the UK Prime Minister tells MPs a former spy and his daughter were poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent developed by Russia. Thank you so much for joining us this Monday evening. Welcome to those of you joining us by radio. It is good to have those of you tuning in via Facebook Live, via our app also. And thank you to those of you joining us via pointefmradio.com. I am Phil George. 23-year-old Delano Forbes has pleaded not guilty to escaping lawful custody. Forbes, who is facing three charges of murder, was captured over the weekend after being on the run for several weeks. Forbes appeared in the All Saints Magistrates Court today and was remanded to prison. He will return to court on May 30th. The accused murderer escaped from police custody on February 12th. He had been transferred to a crime scene in the village of Sweets as investigations continued into the deaths of three men he's accused of killing. Police last week increased the reward from $10,000 to $50,000 as they sought credible information as to his whereabouts. Law enforcement officials say Delano Forbes was captured without incident in the Follies area close to the pumping station at around 9:45 on Friday evening. As a result of Forbes' escape, at least 5 police officers are facing internal charges of neglect of duty. The Police Professional Standards Unit recommended the charges following a review of a report submitted on the circumstances surrounding his escape. Still with police have ruled out foul play in the discovery of a body on board a yacht off Antigua on Sunday. The man has been identified as British national Mark Sturton. According to police, Sturton was discovered dead on the 50-foot vessel Turana by his friend Trevor Marston. Marston said he last saw his friend 6 days ago. The police are reporting there were no marks of violence on the body of the man who reportedly lived on his vessel, thereby ruling out foul play. The vessel was towed by Apsar to Sammy's boatyard, where District Dr. Gilbert Charles arrived on the scene at around 2:30 on Sunday and pronounced Mark Sturton dead. His body was then ordered removed to a funeral home. A post-mortem examination is likely to determine the exact cause of death. Royal Bank of Canada opened for business shortly after noon today after employees signed in for duty this morning but refused to take up their positions. Instead, they journeyed to Antigua and Barbuda Workers Union for a meeting with their representatives where they aired their grievances on matters that are affecting their jobs. Following a buyout by Republic Bank of Trinidad and Tobago by Royal Bank of Canada, many of the bank's employees have expressed uncertainty about their future with the lending institution. According to David Messiah of the Antigua and Barbuda Workers Union, the bank's management is making decisions without the union's involvement. Additionally, negotiations on salary increases and job security are not progressing. Today's walkout by staff has resulted in the bank's top brass requesting a meeting with the union for Tuesday afternoon. It appears the union is willing to lead their employees into taking industrial action if progress is not made. Close to 40 employees of the bank walked out this morning. Prime Minister Gaston Brown has labelled as irresponsible the construction of a political billboard where members of his family, including his 6-year-old son, are on the poster, which is captioned "The Brown Dynasty, All for Us, None for You." Reaction to the billboard has been swift, with calls for it to be removed and condemnation for those responsible for it. Prime Minister Gaston Brown recently spoke on the issue, describing it as exploitation of his young child. He noted that children should not be dragged into the political fray despite their parents' political affiliation.
Been through that before, so I understand the consequences of it. And it's unfortunate that Prince, who's not even, conscious of this kind of thing, that they're trying to engage him and attributing words to him that he never said, would have dreamt of. In fact, the strange thing about it, Prince is a well-cultured young man. I have to tell you, his mother has done an extraordinarily good job with that child. He's gifted, he's well-trained, he's well-cultured. And for them to attribute those comments to him, I think that they're extremely unfortunate, and it's a form of exploitation, because no matter the fact that, we have our political differences, my children should have the right to grow up in this country and to do so without being harassed, without being ridiculed.
Mr. Brown has credited those who have spoken out against the billboard. He says he has seen Antiguans and Barbudans condemning the act in the strongest possible way. 2 Canadian citizens, one a medical doctor and the other an entrepreneur, recently met with Cabinet to discuss ways in which Antigua and Barbuda could benefit from the legalization of cannabis. According to Chief of Staff in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ambassador Lionel Max Hurst, discussions centered on the laws of Canada and the way in which Antigua and Barbuda can make products that would help to reduce pain, lower blood pressure, and reduce other kinds of ailments. Government has spoken of its intention to legalize the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes, though that may be some ways off. As a first step, government has eased the law on the use of marijuana for recreational purposes. Through public consultation and passage through both houses of Parliament, a new law now provides for marijuana users to consume up to 15 grams of the herb without facing prosecution. Under the Misuse of Drugs Amendment Bill 2018, persons will also be allowed to plant a maximum 4 cannabis plants on their properties. However, there are strict rules and regulations. Persons held with more of the herb that is provided for in the law may face prosecution. Additionally, the consumption of cannabis will be forbidden in public places. Prime Minister Gaston Brown believes the lack of preparedness on the part of the main opposition party is resulting in its leader Harold Lovell making unrealistic promises to the electorate. Mr. Brown was making reference to the proposals laid out by the United Progressive Party aimed at bringing relief to Antiguans and Barbudans that have been criticized by many as impractical. Speaking on this radio station at the weekend, the Prime Minister cited the main opposition party's desperation for announcing measures that, if implemented, will place the economy in a precarious situation.
Harold Lovell obviously recognized now that, look, this is desperation time. And what I need to do now is to promise a number of outlandish things with the hope of duping the people that they're going to get these benefits. And in the unlikely event they would have gotten in, all Harold Lovell had to say to them, well, sorry, they're not doable. And these things have happened time and time again. I mean, prior to the 2004 general elections, they said that they would not have reintroduced personal income tax. We actually said to the people on the platform, and that was one of our platform arguments, that if they made a mistake and elected the UPP, that they would have reintroduced personal income tax. And that is why Celeste said at the time, used a famous phrase that should they do so, that crapper will smoke the pipe. Because we know how mean-spirited they are.
Prime Minister Brown is holding firm that his party will claim all 17 seats in the upcoming general elections just over a week away. He says announcing the election date when he did has exposed the UPP's lack of readiness to contest the polls.
Even prior to call elections, we were extremely strong. We had done all our polls, and our polls showed that we're beating them in each constituency. And by calling elections when they're not ready, that too would have given us an additional strategic advantage. So recognizing now that they are so far behind, and that the possibility does not exist for them to catch up. In fact, the timing of the elections would have been so short that for them to gather momentum now and to close that gap is virtually impossible. I know nothing is impossible in politics, but the point I'm making here, it is extremely unlikely. In a scale of 1 to 100, there's a 99% probability that they cannot catch up.
That's Prime Minister the Honourable Gaston Brown ending the national developments this Monday evening. We'll take a break. When we come back, a Vincentian-born jurist is named the third president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ. And we'll tell you that the UK Prime Minister has told MPs a former spy and his daughter were poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. Those stories and more. Do stay with us.
Antigua Barbuda, join us on the road to victory. Come out and meet your candidates. We're rebuilding together. A mega red concert starting at 8 p.m. Saturday, March 17th. The biggest performances by Idonia, Tion Winter, Linky First, Claudette Peter, Burn in Flames.
If you get what you want tonight, will you remember me tomorrow?
Soca star Ricardo Drew and the General Bungie Garlin.
Have one big bad stick truck on the road.
And international recording artist Akon. Come out and meet your candidates. Join us on the road to victory.
An accident can happen at any time, and being involved in one is not a good experience. It can be tragic and expensive, especially without coverage from State Insurance. At State Insurance Corporation, we protect you from facing these challenges alone. Our private motor insurance policy covers accidental collision, fire, windscreen damage, acts of God, bodily injury, theft, medical expense, accidental death, and dismemberment. Visit our website at www.sicntiga.com or call us today at 481-7800 for more information. State Insurance Corporation, for your protection and our economy.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is Point FM's nightly news for Monday, the 12th day of March 2018. If you're just joining us, murder-accused Delano Forbes pleads not guilty for escaping lawful custody. He appeared in the All Saints Magistrates Court today. And a British national is found dead aboard his yacht off Antigua. Turning now to developments from across the region, prominent St. Vincent and the Grenadines jurist Justice Adrian Saunders will become the third person to head the Trinidad-based Caribbean Court of Justice that was established in 2001 to replace the London-based Privy Council as the region's final court. Outgoing CCJ President Sir Dennis Byron, who is due to leave office in July, made the announcement at the 10th annual CCJ International Law Moot competition in Trinidad over the weekend. Earlier this month, Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley confirmed that the issue had been discussed at the CARICOM Intersessional Summit in Haiti and that the regional leaders had agreed to the nomination of Justice Saunders. Trinidad and Tobago jurist Michael de la Bastide was the first person to head the CCJ, which also functions as an international court interpreting the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas that governs the 15-member regional integration movement, CARICOM. Justice Saunders, who's been a judge with the CCJ since its inception, is a graduate of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill and was called to the bar of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 1977. In 1996, Saunders was appointed as a judge of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and in 2003, he was confirmed as a Justice of Appeal of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. 1 year later, he was appointed to act as Chief Justice of the court. In 2005, Saunders was sworn in as a judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice. During the period of his tenure as a judge in the Eastern Caribbean, Saunders was deeply involved in judicial education and judicial reform issues. He chaired the committee established to introduce court-connected mediation in the Eastern Caribbean. The Jamaica Teachers Association, which represents the majority of public school teachers, has remained silent on the strike that has crippled school activities across the island. The strike by public school teachers comes amid a dispute between the Jamaica Teachers Association and the government over wage negotiations. The government has offered teachers and other public sector workers a 16% increase over 4 years. However, while some public sector groups have accepted the offer, the Jamaica Teachers Association has rejected it and has requested that negotiations continue. But the government has insisted that it could not make a better offer and has since indicated that it would be proceeding with paying the portion of the increase that is due to teachers for the 2017 contract period. Saying it felt disrespected, the Jamaica Teachers Association warned the government against the move. Finance Minister Audley Shaw on the weekend said the government would have to hike taxes if it is to meet the demands of teachers and others clamoring for higher wages. Shaw said hiking taxes would throw the fragile economy in a tailspin and warned that it would have serious implications for all. The World Bank says it will provide more than $17 million towards the development of a geothermal plant for Dominica. The bank's operations officer, Carlene Francis, speaking at the launch of the Climate Resilience Execution Agency for Dominica on Friday, said the Washington-based financial institution is committed to assisting the hurricane-battered island in its drive to promote the use of renewable and resilient energy. Dominica has already announced plans to establish a 7-megawatt geothermal plant that is estimated to cost $40 million. Francis said the bank is also working with the Dominica Geothermal Development Company to prepare a geothermal risk mitigation project, adding it will support the development of a 7-megawatt geothermal power plant that will displace diesel generation and reduce electricity costs in the country. She said the World Bank is working in strong collaboration with other development partners to reduce the burden and transaction costs on the country by moving more to partnerships. In developments now on the international scene, British Prime Minister Theresa May has told MPs that former spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter were poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. The Prime Minister said it was highly likely Russia was responsible for the Salisbury attack. The Foreign Office summoned Russia's ambassador to provide an explanation. Mrs. May said if there is no credible response by the end of Tuesday, the United Kingdom would conclude there has been an unlawful use of force by Moscow. The chemical used in the attack, the Prime Minister said, has been identified as one of a group of nerve agents known as Novichok. Mrs. May said either this was a direct action by the Russian state against the country or the Russian government lost control of its potentially catastrophically damaging nerve agent and allowed it to get into the hands of others. She said Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson had told the ambassador Moscow must provide full and complete disclosure of the Novichok program to the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Mrs. May said the UK must stand ready to take much more extensive measures, and those would be set out in the Commons on Wednesday should there be no adequate explanation from Russia. Retired military intelligence officer Skripal, 66, and his daughter Yulia, 33, were found slumped on a bench in Salisbury city centre on Sunday, March 4. They remain in a critical but stable condition in hospital. The Nigerian government says it will negotiate for the release of 110 abducted schoolgirls rather than use military force. The students were seized from their boarding school in the northeast of the country last month by jihadists from the group Boko Haram. Here's more in this report.
The Nigerian authorities know that sending troops and aircraft in pursuit of the jihadists holding the abducted schoolgirls is an extremely risky strategy. President Muhammadu Buhari said the government had chosen negotiation over the military option, and Nigeria was working with international organisations and negotiators to ensure that the girls were released unharmed by their captors. Negotiations have been partially successful before. Dozens of the Chibok schoolgirls were freed in exchange for the release of Boko Haram prisoners. The government denied that a ransom was paid.
Finally, on the international developments this Monday evening, French fashion designer Hubert de Givenchy, who created famous looks for Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly and Jackie Kennedy, has died at the age of 91. His partner Philippe Vinet, a former couture designer, confirmed the news. The enduring appeal of Givenchy was showcased at this year's Oscars, where Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman wore a custom design. But the designer is best known for the little black dress worn by Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's. The friendship between Givenchy and Hepburn endured for 40 years and helped cement his place in fashion and cinema history. She became his muse, and he designed her suits and woolen dresses for the musical Funny Face in 1957 and the light-hearted heist caper How to Steal a Million in 1966. Givenchy came from an aristocratic background and worked alongside the then unknown Pierre Balmain and Christian Dior after World War II. He was employed by the avant-garde designer Elsa Schiaparelli before leaving to found his own fashion house in 1952. There, he introduced the concept of separates, blouse, skirt, jacket, and trouser combinations that could be mixed and matched. Givenchy, dead at 91. That's a look at regional and international developments this Monday evening. Stay tuned. The Weather Report is next.
Is the weather forecast and marine conditions across Antigua and Barbuda for tonight Monday into tomorrow Tuesday, the 13th day of March 2018. A surface high pressure will support stable weather conditions across the area. The high will also generate a moderate southeasterly wind flow across the islands. Across Antigua and Barbuda for tonight, expect mostly fair weather conditions. For tomorrow, sunny conditions can be expected. The winds generally out of the east-southeast, ranging between 10 to 16 knots or 19 to 30 kilometers per hour. Sea conditions will be moderate, with waves reaching 0.1 meters or 5 to 7 feet. A caution is in place for small craft operators and sea bathers, mainly on the eastern and northern sides of the island. Total rainfall for the month of March at the airport remains at 8.1 millimeters or 0.32 inch. High temperature recorded today was 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight's minimum temperature can be expected is 24 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Sunrise time for tomorrow Tuesday, 6:16 a.m. and sunset time for tomorrow, 6:17 p.m. Cecil Matthew from the Met Office reporting.
The weather report brings us to the end of Point FM's nightly news for Monday, the 12th day of March 2018. Just before we go, a recap of the headlines that made the news. Murder accused Delano Forbes pleads not guilty for escaping lawful custody when he appeared in the All Saints Magistrates Court today. Police say the murder accused, on the run for several weeks, was captured on Friday evening without incident. A British national is found dead aboard his yacht off Antigua. A Vincentian-born jurist is named the third president of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And the UK Prime Minister tells MPs a former spy and his daughter were poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. We thank you so much for joining us on this newscast for Monday, the 12th day of March. On behalf of all of us here at Point FM Radio, I am Phil George, wishing you a pleasant evening, and be sure to join me again tomorrow. Goodbye.